Yeah, so that's an interesting point, that none of these are companies that I've started in the aerospace business. In fact, almost all businesses except aerospace, we have biomed and manufacturing and online services and buildings, financial services, right? Entrepreneurship in the space business per se is difficult. And really until the last 5 or 10 years was in general not very successful. And there has now actually been enough infrastructure built by NASA and other government agencies, launch sites and so forth, that it's now possible for a space entrepreneur to work and flourish. It's hard in the end of the business that everyone thinks of, which is the rocket business, although I was for 7 years on the board of a publicly traded rocket company, now called Orbital Sciences, Orbital ATK, which builds rockets and operates them for commercial clients, and the government also builds spacecraft. And it was founded by a classmate of mine in the class of '76, graduating from the Aero Department, Dave Thompson, and has now been over 25 years in successfully flying things into space. But such ventures are hard to start, hard to grow. Space is a very system-critical business. We have an expression, one strike and you're out. You know, if you light the fire under the rocket and it explodes, there's no rewriting the software that night. It's 2 or 3 years of delay in the launch. There are, of course, these well-known popular space entrepreneurs, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. But of course, you have to remember that they started with $100 or $200 million in their pocket in order to capitalize their companies and attract additional capital and government investment in both cases now to help sort of off-books subsidize the development of the space industry. The real commercialization in space is not at the rocket end, it's the data end. Because the real value of space is the information that comes back, either the information about the human experience, which is human spaceflight, or the information about science, solar astrophysics, solar science, planetary science, or information about planet Earth, which is in a wide variety of forms: navigation, communication, Earth sensing, security, and so forth. So there's actually, space in some senses is the original big data play. What the government does and what the satellite operators do is they put things up which are data accumulators and returners, and it's for us on then doing the data analysis to monetize the data that's come back from space. And it's monetizable in various ways. It supports national security, it supports regional planning, it supports disaster relief, it supports weather forecasting. And you know, this is actually sort of almost moved into a layer where the public is no longer aware of it. There's a famous quote by a congressman recently that said, "We don't need NOAA, we have the Weather Channel." Of course, completely belying the fact that he doesn't understand that the NOAA weather data feeds are what the Weather Channel actually used to broadcast to the American people. So the real hot excitement in the space entrepreneurship business, I think, in the next decade is going to be more in the data utilization and value-added products from data services, as opposed to the development of new spacecraft, and specifically as opposed to the development of new rockets. You only build 1 or 2 new rockets a decade, and you do it when you start with $100 million in your pocket. But I work on the human spaceflight aspects, and that's a return of a different sort of information. That's a return about the human experience in space. And in the crafting of the Obama administration space policy, which I participated in through an organization called, our panel called the Augustine Panel in 2009, early in the presidency of President Obama, we specifically recommended the White House, and the White House approved the idea that the commercial space policy of the United States should be to use the maximum possible use of, to take the maximum possible use of all commercial assets and commercially provided services. So the tie now goes to the commercial community. If NASA can do something and the commercial community can do something, NASA is in principle obliged to take it from the commercial community. And that's really at the root, at least in the United States, of this burgeoning of commercial endeavors in space, which is an area in which the United States is either you could say so far ahead of other spacefaring nations, or you could say is almost exclusively done in the United States. Certainly the Indians, the Chinese, the Russians have very tight controls over space and space data products that are made in those countries. And the Europeans allow some amount of private commercial services to compete with the Eastern provided data products.